So, welcome to the coding world. In today's class, we'll be discussing about memory units. So, before getting in detail, I'll just give you a brief description about what does this actually mean. So, computer memory has grown exponentially in the past 3 decades, and each generation of memory brings with it a new level of memory units and new terms to learn. So, I'll be telling you about what is memory, what are the units in it. So, let's get started with this. As soon as you look into the word called memory, what do you get in your mind? So, obviously, you will get a word about a human brain because that is where we store the memory, right? So, computer memory is just like a human brain, it is used to store the data and the instructions. So let us see what are the types of the memory and how they are divided, how can we distinguish between these things and all. So I have given a pictorial representation of memory. As I told you, it looks, it's just like a human brain which is used to store the data and the instructions. So there are two types of memory, primary memory and the second one is secondary memory. So in primary memory, we have two kind of things. One is RAM and the other one is ROM. RAM stands for random access memory. ROM stands for read only memory. And secondary memory is categorized into like hard drive, solid state drive, pen drive, SD card, and compact disk. In short, we call it as CD. So I'll tell you about this in detail in the further slides. Let us start with primary memory. As the name itself says, it's the main memory that is directly accessed by the CPU. So, primary memory is a computer memory that a processor or the computer accesses first or directly. So, what does it do is it allows a processor to access running execution applications and the services that are temporarily stored in a specific memory location. So we call this primary memory as a primary storage or main memory. So it clearly says it's the main memory which is directly accessed by the CPU. Let us see what are the characteristics of these, this primary memory. It is usually volatile. What do you mean by this word volatile? So volatile memory is nothing but a computer memory that requires power to maintain the stored information. Okay, so if I'll have to tell you in a simple way, RAM is volatile memory which is used to hold instructions and data of the currently running programs, but it loses its integrity after the loss of power. You cannot retrieve it back, so that is volatile. So if you do not have the power, even the data will be lost. So RAM memory modules are installed into the slots on the computer motherboard, and ROM is non-volatile. It's a bit opposite of RAM. And the second one is working memory of computers. So the primary memory, it's the working memory of the computers, and it's really faster than the secondary memories. And a computer cannot run without the primary memory because that is the main memory, isn't it? So this is all about primary memory. So I'm just giving you the main things where you can easily understand what is primary memory so that you will understand it in a simple and easy way. Okay, and the next one is, let us learn how the primary memory is divided. As I told you, we have RAM and ROM in this. Coming to RAM, it's random access memory. So as the name says, a random access memory, it's the read or write internal memory of the CPU. Why is it used? For storing the data, program, and the result of the program. Okay, so that is what it does. So that is the function of RAM actually. So it's a form of a computer memory that can be read and changed in any order. So typically used to store working data. Okay, and it's a volatile memory, as I gave you an example of RAM for the volatile. So once the data, once the power is lost, you cannot retrieve the data back. And it's faster memory, as this is a part of primary memory. And it's used in normal operations of the computer after starting up the operating system. Okay, and what's the function of RAM? It stores the information of your computer which is actively using, so that it can be accessed quickly. Okay, so that is what all about RAM. Stepping to ROM, it says ROM, which stands for read only memory. As the name itself suggests that it's read only memory. What do you get to know about it? So RAM refers to the computer memory chips which contains permanent or semi-permanent data. See, unlike RAM, ROM is non-volatile, which is nothing but even after you turn off your computer, the contents of ROM will remain like that itself. So almost every computer comes with a small amount of ROM containing the boot firmware. Okay, and to tell you in simple words, it's a type of computer memory, and unlike RAM, it keeps its contents even when the computer or the device is turned off. And this is used for the BIOS. BIOS is nothing but, oh, let me just write it over here. It's BIOS. So we call it as, I think even this you people might be knowing, like what does BIOS stands for. So it is basic input output system. Okay, what is this BIOS? It's a very small piece of code contained on a chip on your system board. Like when you start your computer, BIOS is the first software that runs. It identifies your computer's hardware, it configures it, it will test it, and then it will be connected to the operating system for further instruction. Okay, that is what is BIOS. So yeah, I was talking about BIOS, right? So ROM is used for the BIOS, which tells the computer how to start, or important programs like the firmware of certain devices, which usually does not need to be modified. So firmware is like it's an electronic component with embedded software instructions such as BIOS. As I told you, typically this software instructions are used to tell an electronic device how to operate, right? That is what we call it as the software instructions, the command which you pass. So firmware is held in non-volatile memory devices like ROM, EEPROM, or flash memory. Okay, and to tell you about this firmware, like how does it work? As I told you, it's stored in permanent or semi-permanent non-volatile memory, which retains its state when the power is turned off. Okay, so it is immediately available to the processor when the power is turned on. So that is what is all about firmware. So like you might be having a doubt, like what might be the role of this firmware? It acts, it's like an intermediate, it plays a role between the hardware and the software, which includes the potential future upgrades of the software. Okay, but what happens is few, like some firmware does the job of booting up a computer by initializing the hardware components and loading the operating system. So it's not required for you. I just gave you the main things. What does it does? Okay, coming to the next one, it's slow memory. RAM is the faster memory, and ROM is slow memory, and it can store the data for longer period of time because it's a non-volatile memory, right? It's non-volatile in nature, and it is used in startup process of a computer. Okay, so that is what all about RAM. And the next one is secondary memory. We can also call it as external memory. Okay, so what is this secondary memory? So it is also termed as external memory, and it refers to the various storage media on which a computer can store the data and the programs. And this secondary storage media can be fixed or removable. Okay, this fixed storage is nothing but it's an internal storage medium like the hard disk that is fixed inside the computer. To give you some examples, you can see over here, you have a hard disk, we call it as HDD, hard disk drive, and SSD, flash, optical drive, USD drives. These are some, examples of secondary memories in a computer. Now, let me tell you about these types in detail. So, I have given something called HDD. You can see the picture of it, right? HDD stands for hard disk drive, or you can call it as hard disk or hard drive or a fixed disk. So, this is an electromechanical data storage device that stores and retrieves the digital data. Okay, and coming to SSD, so it's here. Let me just point this out. So, SSD is over here, okay, and HDD is here. So SSD is a solid state drive. So this is one of the newest generation of the storage device that is used for PCs and laptops. Okay, like in contrast to traditional hard disk drives or HDD, a memory consisting of semiconductors is used to store the data. So semiconductor, I don't know if you people know about semiconductor or not. Let me just give you a what does it mean, it's a kind of material that has an electrical conductivity falling between that of a conductor, like a metallic metallic copper, and an insulator, like glass. You can consider glass. Okay, because see, its resistivity falls as its temperature rises, right? And the metals behave in an opposite way. Yeah, so that is what is semiconductor. We can also, sometimes we call it as ICs. IC stands for integrated circuits, or you can call it as microchips, typically silicon or germanium. Okay, so due to their role in the fabrication of electronic devices, semiconductors are an important part of our lives. Okay, so I'll not go in detail, so that it's not required for you to go that much detail, because it'll be a kind of you're learning about the electronic things as well. Okay, let us come back to this. And then I have CD and DVD. So obviously you will be knowing about the CD and the DVD. So it's over here. So let me explain you about CD. It is compact disc, which is a storage device that are small plastic discs which store and retrieve the computer data or the music using light. You can see the disc over here, right? Let me highlight this. So this one, yeah. So compact discs replaced floppy disks because they were faster and could hold more information. Okay, so that is all about CD. And then DVD. So we call it as digital versatile disc, or you can also call it as digital video disc. That is very similar to a CD-ROM in that you can only read data from it. Okay, so the main difference is that the DVD can store much more data than a CD-ROM. So the next one is SD card. So we use this in our daily lives, right? So it's a type of memory card which typically, which is used in digital cameras and other portable devices. We also use it in our mobile phones. So the full form of SD is secure digital cards. SD card, secure digital cards. But these are the oldest and least used, and they are limited to 2 GB of storage. You can just now you can just look into this. It's written 2 GB micro SD. Yeah. So they were like in olden days and all, olden in the sense before few years. So it was the oldest and the least used, which was limited to 2 GB of storage. And there are few cards like SDHC, we call it as high capacity cards, but they can store up to 32 GB of data. Okay, so that is all about SD card. You might also be having a question like what's the difference between SD card and the memory card? See, this micro SD is a smaller variant of the SD card, and that is used in certain cell phones, lighter devices, PDAs, and smaller these things and all. And they can be read by regular SD card slots through an adapter. Okay. If you ask me the speed of this micro SD, it's slower as compared to SDHC. The same thing happens with the SD card as well. The speed. Okay. And that is what it is. Then we have pen drive. So I have pen drive over here, then I also have it here and then here as well. So why do we use pen drives? See, you can just look at the shape of it. It looks like pen, right? So it's a small storage device which looks like a pen with built-in data storage that connects to a computer by a USB port. Okay, so that is how we connect, right? To store the data, to get the photos into the laptop or to the computer, to get the videos, to get the movies. We call it as a small electronic device, which is used to store the digital data, and it's more portable and robust than a hard drive. And then what else do we have? We have Blu-ray disc. What is this Blu-ray disc? You can see the image of it over here. So often we call it as Blu-ray. So it's a digital optical disc storage format. To tell you about the difference between DVD and Blu-ray, so this Blu-ray has been designed to hold 5 times more information than DVDs. Okay, like as a single layer disc, which can hold up to 25 GB, and the double layer disc are capable up to 50 GB of information. And these Blu-ray discs are therefore formatted to have high definition picture, like the pixels, where you can consider 1080 pixels picture, that is HD. We call it as high definition. Whereas DVDs deliver only standard quality images, okay, but not that kind of HD. So that is what is the difference between this. And the next one is floppy disk. So here it is, floppy disk. So sometimes, like casually, we call it as floppy. So it's a type of disk storage which is composed of a thin and flexible disk of a magnetic storage medium, like in the form of square or nearly square plastic enclosure which is lined with a fabric that removes the dust particles from the spinning disk. Okay, you might also be having a question called why these floppies are not used. These discs became popular in the year 1970s, and the most common format was 1.44 megabytes MB. Like it was capable of holding only very small amount of data, very small amount of data. Okay, let me just erase all of these things. And the computers needs a floppy drive to read the floppy disk, and many modern computers are no longer supplied with a floppy disk drive because we now work with much larger files, right? We have a lot of bytes now. It's not, we will not just deal with MB now. Okay, and coming to the next one, which is magnetic tape. So here you see the magnetic tape here and this one. So a magnetic tape in computer terminology, if I will have to tell, so that is a storage medium that allows for data archiving, the collection and the backup. At first the tapes were wound in wheel-like reels, but then cassettes and cartridges came along which offered more protection for the tape inside. Okay, that is all about magnetic tape. But in general, you can call it as a medium for magnetic recording, which is made up of a thin, a kind of magnetizable coating, or like a narrow strip of the plastic film. So this recording works by converting the electrical audio signals into magnetic energy. Okay, like which imprints a record of the signal onto a moving tape which is covered in magnetic particles. So these things and all. And I have told you about SSD and HDD. Okay, so now coming to the main thing, that is memory units. So, memory unit is the amount of data that can be stored in the storage unit. What do you mean by storage? What do you mean by storage? It's actually where you store, right? So that is what it is. So it's the amount of data that can be stored in the storage unit. So the storage capacity is expressed in terms of bytes. Okay, you might be having you might be having a doubt called what is byte. So one byte is equal to 8 bits. Okay, so one byte is equal to 8 bits. Now in this I have segregated the units and the description of it. Let me teach you about it. So the first thing we have is bit. So here I'll have to tell you about this. So see, I have bit. Bi is where, so bi stands for binary and T stands for digit. So in combination we call it as binary digit. So computer will understand just the binary language. Okay, so it represents the digit in the form of zeros and ones. So whatever data you give to the computer, everything will be translated into binary language, that is just zeros and ones, and you will be not able to understand the computer language. Okay, but then I'll teach you how can you convert from like the decimal numbers to the binary. Hexadecimal also you can convert it to binary. The conversion I'll teach you later in the upcoming sessions, but as of now, to get to know about the memory units, this is more than enough to you. So binary is nothing but just zeros and ones. Okay, then what is nibble? Nibble is a group of 4 bits. See, I told you that one, okay, so 1 byte is how many bits? 8 bits. Okay, so like that, what is nibble? Nibble is half of a byte. If 1 byte is 8, then what will be the half of the byte? Obviously it will be 4. Half of 8 is 4. Yeah, so it's a group of 4 bits. And then what is byte? I have clearly told you it's a group of 8 bits. Bits in the sense, see, for example, I told you binary is all about zeros and ones. So for example, I'll write 0 1 0 1 0 1 1 1. So how many bits do I have? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. We call this as bits. Each digit is a bit. Okay, so we have how many bits here? 8 bits. Okay, now what if I have just 0101? How many bits do I have? It's 4 bits. Okay, so this is a nibble. Okay, I hope you got it. Okay, and then what else? We have a word. Word is nothing but it'll be more than 1 byte, so called as word size, which may be small as 8 bits or large as 96 bits. So this is what all about memory units. I'll just explain you about what the large units are. So some larger units are 1 kilobyte, we call it as 1 KB, which is equal to 1024 bytes, 1024 bytes. If you will have to represent this in terms of bits, then you know it will be a lot, around 8192, I guess. 8192 bits. Okay, so how did I get 8192? I told you if 1 byte is 8 bits, then I have 1 KB here. What do you mean by 1 KB? 1 KB is equal to 1024 bytes. If you will have to convert this into bits, how do you convert? Multiplied by 8. So you will get the answer 8192 bits. Okay, so similarly we have 1 megabyte, that is 1 MB, which is equal to 1024 KB, and then 1 gigabyte, which is equal to 1024 megabytes, and 1 terabyte, which is equal to 1024 gigabyte. So it goes, greater and greater, one after the other: bytes, kilobytes, megabyte, gigabytes, and terabytes. Okay, so that is what is all about memory units. And thank you so